The vast observation deck of the Galactic Conclave Station hummed with activity as aliens from 87 different worlds monitored their instruments. Officer Tae-won stood quietly at his post, his six-fingered hands moving across the control panel with practiced ease. After 300 years in diplomatic service, little surprised him anymore. Unknown vessel approaching from Sector 12, announced the station's AI. Classification: primitive warship. Taewon's inner eyelids blinked rapidly, the closest his species came to expressing surprise. Magnify, he ordered. The main screen displayed a vessel unlike any in the Conclave records. It was angular and asymmetrical by galactic standards, with visible weapon ports and what appeared to be crude propulsion systems. Scan for life forms, Taewon commanded. Life forms detected. Carbon-based. Unknown species, the AI replied. Director Subin, head of the diplomatic station, glided into the room on her gravity discs. What have we found, Officer Tae-won? Potential first contact, Director. From an unregistered world. Their technology appears rudimentary. Subin examined the readings herself. Yet they've achieved interstellar travel. Interesting contradiction. The communications panel chimed. Everyone froze as a voice came through in clear galactic standard. This is Captain Ji Yang of the United Earthship Indomitable. We come seeking peaceful contact with the Galactic Conclave. The control room erupted in surprised chatter. No first contact species had ever managed to decode galactic standards so quickly. How did they learn our language? Subin whispered. Unknown, Tae-won replied. Permission to respond? Subin nodded. UES Indomitable, this is Conclave Station Harmony. You are welcomed. Please maintain current trajectory. Docking protocols will be transmitted. Within the hour, representatives from all major conclave species gathered in the Grand Reception Hall. Many had never seen a first contact ceremony before. Some came out of diplomatic necessity, others from scientific curiosity. A few, like the reptilian POC delegation, came to assess potential threats. I hear they call themselves humans, whispered Science Minister Yoon-ho to Tae-won. Have you informed them of their provisional status? Tae-won nodded. They accepted the terms without question. The massive doors to the reception hall slid open. The room fell silent. The humans entered walking upright on two legs, taller than most conclave species. Their skin varied in color, and they wore matching blue uniforms with insignia that likely indicated rank. They appeared physically stronger than many species present, with dense muscle structure evident even through their clothing. Captain Ji Yang led her delegation with confident steps. She was shorter than some of her companions but carried herself with unmistakable authority. Her dark eyes scanned the room, taking in the array of alien forms without visible shock or fear. Director Subin floated forward on her gravity disk. On behalf of the 87 worlds of the Galactic Conclave, I welcome you to Station Harmony. Captain Ji Yang bowed slightly. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we thank you for your welcome. We have traveled far to meet our galactic neighbors. From the back of the room, Ambassador Daeho of the POC delegation hissed loudly. Their vessel is armed. No civilized species approaches first contact with weapons. Rather than appear embarrassed, Captain Ji Yang smiled. The universe is vast and unknown, Ambassador. We came prepared for any possibility while hoping for peace. Ambassador Daeho's scales flared. Primitive thinking. Advanced species have evolved beyond such concerns. Yet your own vessels carry defensive capabilities, Ji Yang replied calmly. The room fell silent. No one had informed the humans about POC vessels. How could you know that? Ambassador Daeho demanded. We scanned your station and nearby ships before making contact, answered a human woman standing beside the captain. I'm Science Officer Sang-mi. Your technology is advanced but follows recognizable principles. Director Subin intervened before tensions could escalate. Perhaps we should proceed with the formal introductions. The exchange of knowledge is, after all, why we have gathered. As the ceremony continued, Taewon noticed the humans were studying each species intently. They showed no fear of the insectoid Min or disgust at the gelatinous Han. Instead, they demonstrated perfect diplomatic etiquette with each delegation. Most surprising of all, when Minister Yunho mentioned their primitive spacecraft, expecting embarrassment, Captain Ji Yang merely smiled. "The Indomitable may appear simple by your standards," she said, "but I believe it might still surprise you." Taewon felt a strange sensation in his spine, a warning instinct his species had evolved millions of years ago. These humans were different. Despite their newcomer status, they carried themselves like equals. They showed respect without subservience. The formal reception continued into its second hour as delegates from across the galaxy took turns introducing themselves to the human visitors. Captain Ji Yang and her crew maintained perfect diplomatic composure, though many noticed their eyes constantly scanning the room, observing and analyzing. Ambassador Daeho of the POC delegation had grown increasingly agitated. His scaled skin flushed a deeper orange as he watched the humans receive undeserved respect from species far more advanced than these newcomers. "I propose a practical demonstration," Daeho finally announced, interrupting the ceremonial exchange of cultural artifacts. "If these humans wish to join our community, we should evaluate their capabilities directly." Director Subin's gravity disk wobbled slightly. Her species equivalent of a nervous frown. "Ambassador, this is highly irregular. Yet necessary," Daeho insisted. "They arrive in a warship, speaking of peace. Let us see what they truly are." Captain Ji Yang stepped forward. "We welcome the opportunity to demonstrate Earth's capabilities." The humans exchanged glances with such subtle facial movements that most alien observers missed the silent communication passing between them. Only Officer Taewon, with his centuries of diplomatic experience, recognized it as a well-practiced team reaching a quick consensus. "What form of demonstration do you suggest?" asked Tactical Officer Hyun-ki, his voice calm despite the challenging situation. Ambassador Daeho's mouth stretched into what his species considered a smile. "A simple navigation exercise through the nearby asteroid field. All spacefaring races must manage such obstacles." "Agreed," said Captain Ji Yang without hesitation. 3 hours later, observation vessels from 12 conclave species positioned themselves at safe distances around the asteroid field. The UES Indomitable hovered at the entry point, its angular design still striking many observers as primitive compared to the sleek vessels of the conclave. "The course has been transmitted to the human vessel," announced Minister Yunho from the command ship. "It is a standard training route for first-year cadets." Ambassador Daeho made a dismissive gesture. "Even that may prove challenging for them." The Indomitable's engines flared to life, glowing with an unusual blue-white energy that caused several scientific officers to exchange confused glances. The human vessel began moving, not with the expected caution of newcomers, but with confident precision. "They're accelerating," noted Taewon with surprise. Instead of carefully navigating around the larger asteroids as expected, the Indomitable sliced directly through the field, executing tight turns and rolls that seemed impossible for a vessel of its size. At one point, it passed through a gap barely wider than the ship itself, clearing the edges by mere meters. "Impossible," whispered Minister Yunho. "Their reaction time exceeds biological limitations." Ambassador Daeho's scales had paled to a sickly yellow. "Increased difficulty. Route pattern Gamma 6. The new course appeared on the monitors, a challenge typically reserved for experienced military pilots. The Indomitable received the updated coordinates and, without pausing, adjusted its course. What followed astonished even the most skeptical observers. The human vessel executed maneuvers that defied conventional physics, using the gravitational pull of larger asteroids to slingshot through narrow gaps, conserving energy while increasing speed. "Their navigational systems must be automated," suggested one scientist. "No," replied Taewon. "Look at the control patterns. Those are piloted maneuvers." The demonstration concluded with the Indomitable completing the course in half the expected time. As the human vessel rejoined the conclave ships, Ambassador Daeho could not contain himself. "Navigation is one thing. But how would they fare against an actual threat?" he demanded. Captain Ji Yang's voice came clearly through the communication system. If you wish to test our defensive capabilities, we are prepared. However, I suggest a simulation rather than actual weapons fire. Agreed, said Director Subin hurriedly, before Ambassador Deho could escalate further. Our systems can create a virtual combat scenario. What followed shocked the gathered delegates into stunned silence. The simulation began with 5 virtual attackers targeting the Indomitable. Within moments, the human vessel demonstrated defense systems far more advanced than its exterior suggested. Point defense weapons tracked and neutralized incoming projectiles with impossible precision. The ship's shields adapted to each attack, strengthening against repeated strikes to the same area. Most surprising was the tactical approach. The humans fought unlike any known species, using unpredictable patterns that confused even the adaptive AI controlling the simulation. When one simulated attacker managed to breach the Indomitable's outer defenses, the damage control response was equally impressive. Virtual repair teams deployed with such efficiency that the ship never lost combat effectiveness. As the simulation ended, Tactical Officer Hyun-Ki's voice came through with quiet confidence. The UES Indomitable remains operational. All objectives achieved. The observation deck fell silent. Ambassador Deho's scales had blanched completely white, a sign of extreme stress in his species. How? He finally asked. Your exterior technology appears generations behind ours. Captain Jiang's response was simple. We find that appearances can be tactically advantageous, Ambassador. Minister Yunho turned to Taewon, voice lowered. I believe we may have significantly underestimated our new friends. Taewon watched the human vessel with new respect. I suspect that was precisely their intention all along. Following the demonstration, the conclave hastily arranged a formal dinner aboard the diplomatic station. The grand hall had been transformed with tables arranged in a circular pattern, each species seated according to their biological needs. The humans were given a place of honor near Director Subin. The air buzzed with excited conversation as delegates from across the galaxy discussed what they had witnessed. Many now viewed the humans with newfound respect, and some with clear apprehension. Your ship's capabilities are unexpected, said Minister Yunho, delicately consuming a protein cube designed for his species. Most emerging civilizations require centuries more development before achieving such technology. Captain Ji Yang smiled politely. Our path to the stars was perhaps different from others. Different how? Asked Taewon, his curiosity overwhelming his diplomatic reserve. Science Officer Sangmi placed her eating utensil down. Perhaps I can explain. May I use the holographic display? Director Subin nodded, activating the central projection system with a gesture. Sangmi stood and interfaced her personal device with the system. The hologram flickered to life, showing a blue-green planet. Earth, she said simply. Our home. The image shifted to show primitive humans using basic tools of stone and wood. Like many species, we began with simple technology, Sangmi explained. But our development followed an unusual pattern. The hologram shifted rapidly through images of human history, the discovery of metals, the building of cities, the development of increasingly complex machines. But what struck the watching aliens was the frequent appearance of weapons in warfare. You fought, yourselves? Asked a horrified delegate from the Peaceful Min Collective. Yes, Sangmi admitted. Our history contains much conflict. The images continued, showing world wars with devastating weapons, cold wars with nuclear arsenals, regional conflicts with increasing technological sophistication. Most species that develop such weapons destroy themselves, noted Ambassador Deho, his scales darkening with concern. How did you survive? By learning, adapting, and ultimately understanding that cooperation serves us better than conflict, Sangmi replied. But the competition drove innovation at an accelerated pace. The hologram showed the formation of global alliances, joint scientific ventures, and finally, the creation of a unified Earth government. When we detected your transmission signals 50 Earth years ago, we were still fighting among ourselves, Sangmi continued. The knowledge that we were not alone united us in purpose. A ripple of surprise passed through the gathering. Minister Yunho leaned forward, inner eyelids blinking rapidly. You detected our signals? And decoded them without assistance? Yes, Sang-mi confirmed. And we made a collective decision to prepare thoroughly before making contact. The implications silenced the room. The humans had known about the conclave for decades, studying them from afar, developing technology specifically designed to interact with, or if necessary, defend against advanced alien civilizations. This explains much, said Director Subin thoughtfully. Most species join the conclave at earlier stages of development. They receive guidance and technological assistance. And constraints, added Captain Ji Yang quietly. The statement hung in the air, its meaning clear to all. Species guided by the conclave developed along approved paths. Humanity had developed independently, following its own unique trajectory. What is most remarkable, observed Tae-won, is that you achieved faster than light travel without assistance. Only 3 other conclave species managed this independently. Necessity drove us, explained engineer Min-soo, speaking for the first time. When we realized the distances involved, we knew conventional propulsion would not suffice. The hologram showed Earth scientists working on complex equations and experimental drive systems, many failing catastrophically before success was achieved. How many died testing these technologies? Asked a delegate from the risk-averse Han species. Too many, Min-soo admitted. But they are honored as pioneers who helped humanity reach the stars. As the evening progressed, many delegates approached the humans privately, asking questions they would not voice publicly. What struck Tae-won as he observed these interactions was the humans' willingness to acknowledge both their achievements and their mistakes. Later, as the gathering dispersed, Tae-won overheard a conversation between 2 senior scientists. They developed in isolation, under pressure of their own making, one said. It explains their ship's capabilities. They built for survival in a hostile universe. But what else have they created that we haven't seen, replied the other. And what will they build next, now that they have access to our knowledge? Across the room, Captain Ji-yan caught Tae-won watching. She raised her glass slightly in acknowledgement, her expression friendly but unreadable. Behind that smile, Tae-won realized, lay the collective experience of a species that had clawed its way to the stars through conflict and cooperation, fear and hope, a path entirely different from most conclave members. It made them unpredictable. And in galactic politics, unpredictability was both valuable and dangerous. The diplomatic banquet had given way to formal negotiations. 3 days after the humans' arrival, representatives from the conclave's governing council sat across from Captain Ji-yang and her officers in the station's main conference chamber. The discussion centered on Earth's potential membership status and access to conclave technology archives. We propose a 10-year observation period, said Counselor Han-jae, his translucent tentacles waving gently. Standard procedure for new species. Captain Ji-yang maintained her diplomatic smile. Earth respectfully requests expedited membership. Our technological achievements demonstrate our readiness. Tae-won, now assigned as the humans' liaison, noticed Security Chief Junho discreetly checking his wrist device for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. Something about the humans' behavior suggested more than mere impatience. Is everything all right, Chief Junho? Tae-won asked quietly. Before Junho could answer, the conference room lights flashed red. A computerized voice echoed through the chamber, alert. Unknown vessels approaching. Weapons signatures detected. The conclave representatives looked at each other in confusion. Director Subin activated the main view screen. 3 ships of unfamiliar design had appeared near the station, their hulls reflecting no light black shapes against the stars. Identification? Subin demanded. None, replied the station's AI. Configuration unknown. Not in conclave records. Captain Ji Yang stood immediately. How long until they reach weapons range? They are already within range, the AI responded. Energy buildup detected in their forward sections. The station shuddered violently as the first volley struck. The lights flickered, and emergency systems activated. Shields at 60%, reported the AI. Unknown weapon type penetrating standard defenses. Chaos erupted in the conference room. Several delegates rushed toward the exits while others froze in shock. The Conclave had known peace for so long that many had never experienced actual combat. Station Harmony, this is Admiral Kaisuk of the Voidwalker fleet, came a cold voice over the communication system. Your technology archives will be surrendered immediately. Resistance is inadvisable. Director Subin struggled to maintain composure. This station is protected by Conclave law. We are a diplomatic installation, not a military target. Your laws are irrelevant, replied Admiral Kaisuk. You have one standard time unit to comply. Another blast rocked the station. Warning lights flashed throughout the corridor as emergency bulkheads began closing. Shields at 40%, announced the AI. Critical systems compromised in sectors 7 through 9. Captain Ji Yang turned to her officers. Tactical assessment? 3 vessels, advanced weapons technology, precision targeting of station defenses, reported Security Chief Junho instantly. They knew exactly where to hit. Engineer Minsu added, the station's design prioritizes diplomatic functions over defense. It cannot withstand sustained attack. Captain Ji Yang nodded and turned to Director Subin. The Indomitable stands ready to assist. Impossible, interrupted Counselor Han Jae. Conclave protocols forbid involving non-members in security matters. Another blast shook the station more violently than before. The lights went out completely before emergency power engaged, bathing everyone in dim red lighting. Shields at 15%, reported the AI, its voice now distorted. Hull breach in Sector 12. Life support compromised in diplomatic quarters. Director Subin made her decision. Protocol is suspended. Captain Ji Yang, what can your vessel do? Buy you time, Ji Yang replied simply. She activated her communication device. Indomitable, this is the captain. Combat Protocol Alpha. Move to defensive position between attackers and the station. Within moments, the UES Indomitable detached from its docking port and accelerated toward the attacking vessels. On the viewscreen, the human battleship looked small compared to the black ships, but it moved with purpose. Evacuation protocols initiated, announced the station AI. All non-essential personnel to escape pods. Security Chief Junho turned to Taewon. We need station schematics and access to your defense systems. Taewon hesitated only briefly before providing his access codes. The main control room is 2 levels down. But what can you do that our systems cannot? Junho's expression was grim. Fight dirty. On the viewscreen, the Indomitable had positioned itself between the station and the attackers. Its shields flared brilliantly as it absorbed a direct hit that would have finished the station. They'll be destroyed, whispered Minister Yunho in horror. The Indomitable's response was immediate and devastating. Weapons ports that had remained closed during the demonstration now opened, revealing systems far more advanced than anything the humans had previously shown. The human vessel launched a barrage that struck the lead attacker with pinpoint accuracy. Rather than targeting the ship broadly, the Indomitable's weapons focused on specific systems, weapons, engines, sensors, methodically disabling rather than destroying. They're drawing fire away from us, realized Taewon as the attackers turned their attention to this unexpected threat. Captain Ji Yang's voice came through the communication system, steady despite the battle raging around her ship. Director Subin, evacuate your people. We'll hold them off. Another blast rocked the station. Alarm klaxons blared as more systems failed. 67 seconds to complete shield failure, reported the AI. Minister Yunho stared at the humans with new understanding. You came prepared for this. We came prepared for anything, replied Captain Ji Yang as she headed for the door. Now let's get your people to safety. The station's emergency lighting cast long shadows across the evacuation corridors as Taewon helped wounded delegates toward the escape pods. Behind him, Captain Ji Yang and Engineer Minsu moved with practiced efficiency, sealing damaged sections and rerouting power to critical systems. Indomitable, status report, Ji Yang called into her communication device. Taking heavy fire, Captain, came the strained voice of First Officer Sujin. Shields at 40% but holding. We've disabled the weapons array on the lead vessel. On the main view screen in the emergency command center, the UES Indomitable executed a series of maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. The human vessel was using the station's debris field as cover, appearing and disappearing among floating fragments to launch precise attacks before retreating. "They fight like nothing I've ever seen," whispered Director Subin, her gravity disk flickering from damage. "Not like warriors, like predators." Engineer Minsu was working alongside Conclave technicians, his fingers flying across unfamiliar controls. "I've rerouted auxiliary power to Section 3. We can hold life support for another 20 minutes. A massive explosion lit up the view screen as one of the Indomitable's shots found a critical system on the second attacking vessel. The black ship didn't explode but listed sideways, venting atmosphere. "Did they destroy it?" asked Minister Yunho. "No," Security Chief Junho replied, not looking up from the defense console he'd partially dismantled. "Targeted engine shutdown. They're disabling, not destroying." A direct hit rocked the Indomitable, its shields flaring bright blue before partially collapsing. "Shield failure in sectors 2 and 5, reported First Officer Sujin over the communication channel. Casualties on decks 3 through 7. Medical teams responding." Captain Jiang's face remained calm, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped the console. "Hold position, Indomitable. Conclave evacuation is 60% complete." Taewon watched in amazement as human crew members worked alongside station personnel, showing no fear despite the danger. In the medical bay, human doctors treated wounded aliens with the same urgency as their own injured crew. "Why are you doing this?" Taewon finally asked Jiang. "You could retreat. Save your ship." Jiang looked at him with steady eyes. "Because that's not who we are." Another blast rocked the station. The lights flickered and went out completely before the emergency systems engaged again. "Final evacuation pods launching," announced the station AI, its voice distorted by damage. "Station integrity critical." On the view screen, the Indomitable was now clearly damaged, with visible breaches in its hull. Yet it continued fighting, positioning itself to draw fire away from the escaping pods. "Your ship won't survive another direct hit," Director Subin told Jiang. "It doesn't need to survive much longer," Jiang replied. "Just long enough." Security Chief Junho suddenly straightened from the console he'd been working on. "Connection established. Captain, I have access to the station's remaining defense grid." "Execute Plan Delta," Jiang ordered without hesitation. Junho entered a series of commands. Throughout the damaged station, dormant defense systems suddenly activated, not with their original protocols, but with new targeting parameters that seemed impossible for the outdated technology. "How did you?" began Minister Yunho. "Adaptive reprogramming," Engineer Minsu explained briefly. "Your systems weren't broken, just thinking too predictably." The station's remaining weapons fired in perfect coordination with the Indomitable's attacks. The synchronized assault caught the attacking vessels by surprise. One black ship took critical damage and began drifting away from the battle. "Admiral Kaisuk is retreating," reported First Officer Sujin. "Remaining vessel is powering up its drive system." The attacker's ship shimmed with energy and disappeared into the darkness of space, leaving only destruction behind them. In the sudden silence, the humans continued working without celebration. Medical teams treated the wounded. Engineering crews secured dangerous systems. Security personnel established a defensive perimeter around the remaining station sections. 3 days later, as Conclave rescue vessels arrived to evacuate the last survivors, the governing council gathered in what remained of the station's main chamber. The human delegation stood before them, their uniforms still showing signs of battle. "The Conclave owes you a debt we cannot repay," Director Subin stated formally. "Without your intervention, all would have been lost." Captain Jiang nodded simply. "We did what any sentient being should do for others in danger." Ambassador Daeho, his scales still pale from the ordeal, stepped forward. "I was wrong about humans. I called you primitive because you carried weapons. Now I understand, you carry them not because you want conflict, but because you are prepared to defend others as well as yourselves." The conclave voted unanimously to offer Earth immediate full membership and unprecedented action that bypassed all standard protocols. As the ceremony concluded, Ambassador Deho approached Captain Ji Yang privately. "There is something I must know," he said quietly. "How does a species survive becoming so dangerous?" Ji Yang looked at the injured crew members, both human and alien, supporting each other across the room. "By remembering that strength without compassion isn't strength at all," she answered. "We learned that lesson the hard way." Taewon, overhearing the exchange, understood something profound about these humans. They had not evolved beyond violence like many conclave species. Instead, they had embraced their capacity for both destruction and protection, carried it with them to the stars, and used it when needed, not with pride or shame, but with solemn purpose. As the Indomitable prepared to escort the damaged station to safety, Taewon realized the galaxy had just changed forever. Humanity had arrived, not as students to be guided, but as guardians no one had expected.